Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 6 starts now.
Seniors trapped in a high-rise without working elevators. Now Help Me Hank coming to the rescue. The city cracking down on the building management company. Since Hank first exposed the problem, the city has now put a team in place to help those seniors who really have been stuck.
Parts for the elevator have been ordered and code violation tickets are being written. Consumer investigator Hank Winchester is live. Hank, thankfully, the ball is rolling now to get help for these folks.
How upsetting is it for you to see people in conditions like this?
It's very upsetting. This is something that's totally uncalled for, and we're going to hold them accountable.
The city of Detroit taking swift action, stunned like I was yesterday by what I saw in this senior building. Seniors trapped, no working elevators at all, 7 stories high, and it's been like this for days. Do you need to take a seat over here for a minute, take a little breather?
No, I'm going to try to go up there.
Okay.
I'm so tired, I'm gonna hurry.
So what really happened here? Well, this may all be a battle between the building management company and the elevator company. Why? Likely unpaid bills. But the city is not taking any chances, ordering the parts needed themselves, moving quickly to help those in this building who need it.
We're ordering the work to be done. The ordinance allows me to do this in emergency situations. If you've got seniors in a building and they can't get to the ground floor, that's an emergency situation.
Building management not responding to my request for an interview, but the goal here was simple: to get help to those who need it. Work is being done to make sure the seniors are safe, and the elevators will soon be back online.
A lot of help came today, thanks to you.
Well, hey, we just want to make sure that you get the help that you need, and more importantly, we're going to get these elevators up.
I really appreciate that.
Back out here live in Detroit. So what is the current status of this situation? Well, the city now has moved ahead, as you heard, ordering the part themselves. They will in fact pay for an installation crew if necessary. That should be on the ground here tomorrow. In the meantime, those fees, they keep racking up. We're talking about more than $1,200 a day. And then there's the legal action. So the owner of this building is not only going to have to explain their actions to the people that live here, they're going to have to do so in court. We're going to stay on top of this one to make sure that people in this building are safe and get the help they need. We're live here tonight. Hank Winchester, Help Me Hank, back to you.
Glad the ball is rolling on this. Hank, before you go, I know you're digging deeper into what people can do if they find themselves in these unlivable conditions. Talk about that.
Yep, and that's exactly why I'm going to join you tomorrow starting at 6 a.m. Listen, the city can offer a lot of assistance. There are thousands of people living in apartments, rental homes all over Detroit. If you have an issue, you're living in bad conditions, it doesn't have to be that way. I have important information for you. I'll share that with you tomorrow morning, starting at 6 a.m.
Well, as we always say, we hate that you have to get involved to get people to do what they're supposed to do, but so glad in this case that the ball is rolling on this. Hank, we appreciate it so much.
Yep.
One person was killed on Detroit's east side today after they crashed during a police chase. It started Sherwood Street and 8 Mile, right along Warren's border with Detroit, when Warren officers attempted a traffic stop for speeding. Chase ended near East Outer Drive and Anglin Street when the driver swerved to keep from hitting the back of another car, losing control, causing the car. One witness said they flipped over about 10 times. And that driver was ejected from the vehicle. The Detroit Police Department now handling the crash investigation.
Now to the trial of Jaylen Brauer, accused of murdering his cousin Zion Foster of East Point. The defense team rested today without calling any witnesses. They're banking on the fact that Foster's body has never been found. Sean Lee is live with today's developments. And Sean, the defense made a big ask today, and the judge said no.
Absolutely, and any parent should really pay attention to this case. Absolutely chilling to have to sit there and listen to what happened to Zion Foster and Jaylen Brauer on trial for murder here. However, there's no forensic evidence in this case, no blood, no DNA. So his defense attorney did what a lot of attorneys said would happen. He asked for an immediate acquittal of Jaylen Brauer right there on the spot. And you're right, the judge said no. Here's the latest.
Is it your decision to testify or not testify in this case? Not testify.
Late today, we finally heard from Jaylen Brauer. He was asked if he wanted to testify on his own behalf. He's accused of murdering his cousin, 17-year-old Zion Foster. Would Brauer finally reveal what happened as he and Zion were alone in his house in January of 2022? His answer was no. Prosecutors taking days, calling 30-plus witnesses, building its case that Zion Foster did not just suddenly die on Brazier's couch. They say Brazier's actions of dumping her body in a dumpster, changing his story several times, his internet searches about how to know if the FBI is after him, also searches of pornography, cousins, and sexual activity. But late today, Brazier's attorney put up absolutely no defense. Attorney Brian Brown asking the judge to acquit Brazier on the spot, saying prosecutors had no forensic evidence, no blood, no DNA, nothing to prove that Brazier killed Foster, asking for what's called a direct verdict. That was denied. Local 4 legal analyst Neil Rockine expected Brown to demand that direct verdict.
If the judge grants a directed verdict motion in favor of the defendant, that's it. The murder count, the homicide count is dismissed. That's it. That's an acquittal.
You know, I interviewed Neil Rockine about an hour before Jaylen Brazier's attorney asked for that direct acquittal, essentially from the judge. So Neil Rockine has had several cases where there's been no body. Very challenging, but he's not surprised at all that that was asked in court because there's no DNA, no blood evidence linking Brazier to actually murdering Zion Foster. Lots of other evidence, though, for the jury to go after. So wrapping things up tomorrow, guys, 9:30, closing arguments. You can watch them stream online on Local 4 Plus, Local 4, and click on Detroit.com. We'll be here for every word. Back to you.
Look forward to a recap tomorrow. Sean, we appreciate this update.
People are still trying to figure out how a group of headstones wound up in a vacant lot on Detroit's east side. Our Victor Williams has spent a couple of days now looking into the situation to see if any remains were actually buried there. Viewers have reached out to help, but the experts saying it is not likely that this is any sort of a makeshift graveyard. Right, Victor?
Devin, totally correct. And I got to say, the viewers have been great. They've been sending us messages from all over with emails just pouring in, trying to help us get to the bottom of what exactly this is. But we spoke to an expert who says this is not at all what it really looks like.
Sure, it's a scary thing to find.
The mystery surrounding several headstones being found next to a home on Detroit's east side continues to play out. If it's anyone who has an idea on if this is an actual grave site or not, it's Paul Weeks Jr. with Otto Szymanski's Sons. His family has been working in the memorial business since 1883 and what used to be one of 14 monument companies on Detroit's east side.
Looking at the conditions of the stones, they're not easy to break in half. More than likely, those stones were ones that were replaced due to being damaged.
A lot of you sent in suggestions that we look at public records, which we already had. According to death certificates, several people were supposedly buried at Mount Olivet and Forest Lawn Cemetery. Both places say they have no records for anyone. Paul, however, says there may be a reason for that.
Based off of the dates of those stones, I mean, back then there was no computers, there was no system like that. And it's hard to keep papers in a good condition for that length of time. You're talking close to 80 years now.
One of the only ways to truly find out what lies beneath is to dig, but Paul says another possibility is that people once upon a time may have used the stones to be resourceful.
If there's mud patches in the backyard or something like that, like, well, I might be able to use that for a pathway. And that's what it kind of seems like those stones may have been laid out as, because the typical spacing for an actual grave, it's much wider than just that.
Now, we already heard from the city saying that they have no record of this being some type of burial site, but now the state is saying the exact same thing in a statement that they just sent over to us, which reads, quote, "Staff reviewed the address provided and it does not correlate to any abandoned cemeteries known to the department. However, it does appear the address is close to Mount Olivet Cemetery, which is regulated by the department under the cemetery regulation. There is no way to determine if the markers may have come from Mount Olivet Cemetery." Victor Williams, Local 4.
What a story. All right, Victor.
A new University of Michigan study suggests the electrification goals set by the U.S. may not be realistic because there's just not enough copper available. The Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 calls for 100% of vehicles manufactured here to be electric by the year 2035. However, an EV requires 3 to 5 times as much copper as an internal combustion vehicle. Case in point, a normal Honda Accord needs about 40 pounds of copper, but the electric version of the same car requires 200 pounds. There's also a push for more wind turbines, which use between 10 and 20 tons of copper, depending on whether they're onshore or offshore. U of M researchers looked at global copper mining and found the world would need to mine 115% more copper than has been mined in all of human history just to reach current needs for things like infrastructure in developing countries before factoring in the U.S. electric vehicle mandate. That would require 6 new mines brought online every year, so no easy task considering the current 20-year wait time for a mining permit once a new deposit is discovered. The researchers suggest a compromise focusing on hybrids instead of fully electric vehicles until copper production can catch up.
President Biden and former President Trump have agreed to 2 general election debates. Right now, the first scheduled pretty soon, June 27th, inside the Atlanta studios of CNN. Both candidates have also accepted invitations from ABC for a second debate that will be held in September, on September 10th. More details on both of these need to be worked out. The Biden campaign has proposed a vice presidential debate as well that they suggest happen in late July.
The U.S. House today voted to pass a major federal aviation bill, which now heads to President Biden's desk for his signature. The bipartisan bill renews authority for the FAA for the next 5 years. The agency will have a lot on its plate when it comes to boosting safety and strengthening protections for passengers and airline workers.
Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
The Federal Aviation Administration reauthorization bill passing the House ahead of Friday's deadline to reauthorize FAA authorities. The bill contains more than $105 billion in funding for the FAA, as well as $738 million for the National Transportation Safety Board through 2028. Good news for travelers. The legislation includes strengthened consumer protections for refunds for flight cancellations and delays, as well as implementing technology to reduce the risk of runway collisions.
From now on, when your flight is canceled for any reason, you are entitled to an automatic cash refund, and it has to be prompt. If you get delayed significantly, that means 3 hours domestically, 6 hours internationally, you're going to get your money back.
Another goal, addressing the country's shortage of air traffic controllers by expanding hiring. Despite a surge in hiring last year, air traffic control stations nationwide are still about 3,000 controllers short. That's according to new FAA numbers. The current understaffing means controllers at many facilities are regularly working overtime to cover gaps.
It's going to help keep air traffic safe by hiring and equipping the FAA professionals who do that.
Protecting airline workers from combative customers will also be a big priority. The bill expands legal protections for ground-based employees like gate and check-in agents. It will also provide more self-defense training for flight attendants who've had to deal with increasing numbers of unruly passengers in recent years.